Thank you, Father, for your day, your Shabbat. Thank you for friends, family to join, new people to join, and bless this message. And can't wait to hear what you have to say through the word. In Yahuwah's name, amen. Okay, I'll see you in an hour.
Okay, so we're going to be talking about Psalms 33 here. So, of course, we're going to start with other stuff. As a consideration, now, Israelites got in big trouble coming right out of the Exodus. They come to Mount Sinai and they turn the regard of Yahweh into a golden calf. Why not a bull? I mean, if they were going to go for Aleph and somehow think, hey, this is the way we should rendition him, who knows what the heck those guys were thinking. And then was it the Assyrians or the Philistines certainly had this fellow they named Dagon. Now the word dag is fish. Like we would see D-O-G, that's dog. Dalet Gimel is the word for fish. Some people say noon is the word for fish, but noon means to multiply like fish multiply or like grain multiplies. So Joshua, son of Nun. Noon like a fish jumps out of Mem. So you've got that picture. And remember, Dagon was there was that statue when the Philistines had captured the Ark of the Covenant in battle because the Israelites thought, hey, let's just make we're having a tough time in this one war, this conflict. The Philistines are really pretty tough to fight. We're not making much headway. Let's go grab the Ark of the Covenant. And if we can have our God right in the middle of the fray, yeah, that'll give us some clout. Well, they did that. And that was totally against protocol. And the Philistines, this is in the scripture, the Philistines seeing this said, whoa, we're done for. It's now or never. We better fight like we got nothing left to lose. And they actually overwhelmed the Israelites, captured the Ark of the Covenant, took it back into their territory. The Israelites were like, oh man, they just took off running in retreat. And that's when I believe his name was Eli, the high priest, was sitting in his chair out in front, and he heard the news and he fell over backwards, broke his neck, and as they say, big trouble for moose and squirrel. Moose and squirrel, that's we'll get to that maybe next week or something, talking about that little, what would you call it, an emblem, some kind of a little sculptural motif that we had the other day that we put up on the chat. Anyway, we'll talk about moose and squirrel about that. But this situation with the Philistines, I tell the story. I did some work for a guy many years ago, and he had something under a glass dome, some kind of a artifact of something. Was going to do some painting or something in his house and say, oh, what's that? And he says, that's actually a Hittite god, some kind of relic that he had gotten over in Israel or Lebanon or something. And it's like a Hittite god. And my thinking was, what are you doing with this thing? It's just a piece of one. But the Israelites were told, smash and ruin and destroy all remembrance, all trace of the foreign deities. Why? Well, he said, those Israelites, those Jews, they were pretty clever. See, back in those days, when you brought your God on a stick or in a box or so into the battle, it was like, oh, if the enemy could capture that, well, you were done. You knew it's all over. Because if your God, the one you trusted in, wasn't capable of defeating the other guy's God, and who's your God? You got nothing. He's a wimp, or he's incapable, impotent of some manner that the other guy should capture your God. And the army just gave up. It's like, well, why would the army give up? Because of the mentality of how much we can say, though, them guys a long time ago on the other side of the world, they used to do this kind of thing. And it's like, well, it really isn't that those guys, them folks over there do that kind of thing. It's human nature. Your deity, your theos, your Elohim, the one you trust, when he lets you down, it's all over. The jig's up. You got nothing. Well, when the Philistines captured the Ark of the Covenant, they brought him and they put the Ark in the room with their Dagon statue. And they came in the next morning and the statue had fallen over. I think it had done that at least once, maybe twice. And then the next time they came in, the statue had fallen over of its own accord, let's say, or some angel shoved it, but nevertheless, the head and the hands had broken off. It's like, whoa, some weird mojo's happening with this Ark of the Covenant. So they picked it up and they took it elsewhere. They took it to some other town. And everybody in that town started getting, I believe what the manifest of the plague was rats and hemorrhoids. And then they picked it up and took it to another city and another city. I think there was, if I recall correctly, I didn't read this up, but I think there was like 7 principal cities of the Philistines, and they took it to each one, and it kept happening. And it's like, let's get rid of this thing. It's a curse. So that's when they put it on a cart with some oxen, and it was pulling, and David encountered it and was rejoicing. And, that part of the story where it started to tip and somebody stabilized it and he got zapped. You don't touch that thing. And it's like, wait, no, what's going on? Or maybe that was, they had it in one place for a while and then David had it moved and that's when that happened. But my point is, so this Ark of the Covenant has some great regard, like it's a container, God's in the box. No, it doesn't work that way. This guy said that, the Israelites, them Jews are pretty clever. Their God was invisible, so he could never be captured. So they go into battle with an invisible God, and it's like, there was this thing about a battle flag. If you could capture if you were in a war, a conflict, if you could capture the guy's battle flag, in some rules of warfare, you get some extra points, or not that the other guy necessarily capitulates and completely surrenders or retreats, but it's a big deal to capture the other guy's flag or to capture the other guy's God, to capture the other guy's, the Roman legions had this standard, this thing that they would hold, a psalmic, with all these words and faces of their deity symbols on it. And boy, if you could capture that, they would spare no expense to go retrieve it. It's like people have these little treasures in mind. Who's their Elohim? What represents their Elohim? Can Yahweh Zavot be contained in a box? When David was contemplating building the temple, Yahweh says, what are you doing? And even Solomon said, the vast expanse beyond our imagination of the heavens can't even contain you. I'm not thinking to contain you in this temple, nor do I think that you're here. Do we think we have some sort of holy relic in a word, in a name, or in the alphabet? It's just a reference. Even the Bible, the scriptures, the Torah, is it the Holy Bible? Is it the holy, or is it just a reference of him? Who's your Elohim? We're not going to picture Elohim as a bovine, a cattle, a bull or a calf or a fish, but just for the sake of consideration, if, just a metaphor, if Elohim was a fish and you wanted to catch him, you wanted to put bait on a hook and go out there and try to get him to bite, what would you use for bait? Somehow his attention is turned away elsewhere, and you want to, hey, look over here. Hello. What would we do, not only to get his attention, but to get his favor? Do we have to imagine, if I was God, I would attend to the prayers of all people? So you listen to Catholic Blessed Virgin Mary, BVM radio. I don't think it's called that anymore. It used to be. Anyway, they have this thing that they do. They say, have mercy on us and on the whole world for the sake of your sorrowful passion. Have mercy on us and on the whole world. Wait a minute. What's his thing? Does Yahweh Zavot have mercy on the whole world? Is he not doing that automatically? Do we have to petition that? Remember Jim Morrison of The Doors? I think it was on Strange Days album. I think is what it was. You know, The Doors, I thought, had a couple pretty good songs. I didn't really listen to them that much, but I was introduced to them, a friend who liked their music. And I remember some of the lyrics of this one particular song, the intro to it. Jim Morrison said, when I was in seminary school, they told us that you can petition the Lord in prayer. Petition the Lord in prayer. You cannot petition the Lord in prayer. And he yells it, and then he boom, goes into his song. It's like, well, I was a Christian listening to that and go, this guy's a liar, or he's totally deceived. And he is trying to take whatever truth there is regarding that matter and steal it from the hearts, from the ears, from the mind of whoever's listening to his music, which is imposing some sort of death for anybody that would ultimately run with that concept. If it's not true, spiritually forever death. So why am I entertaining myself with the words of a liar, a thief, and a murderer? I can't be entertained. I'm not entertained. Every time I listen to this, I'm fighting against it. I can't. Gosh. But where's the truth of the matter? Can Yahuwah Zavot be petitioned with prayer? Is it the same as the Lord? And if the Lord cannot be petitioned by prayer, can Yahuwah Zavot be petitioned by prayer? And is that then the way to get his attention? Just ask. And remember, Yahusha said, you have not because you ask not. And when you do ask, you ask with the wrong motive, the wrong, help, heal me, save me. Is that the wrong motive? You're too self-absorbed. I am a self. You made me that way. What do you mean I'm self-absorbed? I got to pray, save somebody else, but not me. Yeah, how do these things work? How does this stuff work? Well, he hears the prayers of everybody. Does he? It says in, what is it? Proverbs, that he who turns away his ear from listening, from Shema, the Torah, even so. Now that word even so is the word gimel mem, which means this reciprocal mirror reflective action. If we turn our ear from hearing his Torah, his ear is turned away from hearing our prayer, which means you can't just ask him. He can't hear you. He can't hear me or us if that's conditional, if we don't listen to the Torah, our voice is silent, doesn't count. There's those verses talking about your prayers bouncing off the heavens, the ceiling, as if they were bronze. How did your voice get through? Just have faith. Faith in what? Faith that he'll hear you even though you don't listen to his Torah? Faith can't go against what he said, even if you believe it, even if you have faith, because that's not the way it works. The way it works, what does that mean? That means he somehow built rules into the whole system of relationship dynamics. He built rules such as in mathematics, 2 + 2 = 4, and it always will. Can you imagine some other universe where 2 + 2 did not equal 4? Maybe, whether you can imagine it or not, perhaps there's some sort of he could have invented a world of, let's call it slippery math, where certain circumstances, 2 + 2 didn't equal 4. There's other things. I mean, 2 what? 2 integers? 2 fixed items? Or is everything so nebulous and slippery that you can never lock in that there's a quantity of 2? We could imagine anything. And if your faith was just that imaginary, well, how do you know you're right? We have faith. You can have faith in anything. That doesn't count. You can believe anything. You can make any story and have faith in it. That doesn't count. It has to be faith in what he built, what he said, who he is. He who. I mentioned there's this one Israeli lady was saying to a friend, you call him he, how do you know he's a he? That's just what we say. No, because when he said his name, Shem Zakar was Yod He Vav He. Zakar means to remember, commemorate, memorialize, stick in your mind, and it also means masculine. So even though He is a feminine suffix, and you could look at Yod He Vav He and say, if it's a masculine word reference, why does it end in a He? Yod He Vav He. Well, you can make up some reason for that. Some combo of trans or feminine, masculine. I don't know. I don't even want to go there. It just, he says that's his Shem Zakar. That's a masculine reference to remember. That's Yod He Vav He, and let's just go with what he's given us. Okay, so we're going to talk about Psalm 33. But before we get there, let's look at Deuteronomy 5, 29 and 30. Remember, how do you get Yahuwah's attention? I've got this written out, and I'll send it to Kurt. So you can, there's not too many words here, but it says, Ve shamratam la ashot ka'asher zoa Yahweh elheka atkam lo tasoro im in ve shemal. Shamar, Shin Memresh is the first word. That's guard, observe, keep, attend to, hold this real solid, intact. Remove the dregs. If it starts to get polluted, it's as autumn approaches and leaves and sticks fall in the path, clear the path. It's the first task Adam was given to do in the garden. Name the animals and shomer the garden. He wasn't told, make sure there's no snakes. He was told to shomer, tend, watch, keep guard the garden. And then it says la ashot. Well, that's lamed ayin shin vav tav. Well, ayin shin hey is do, make, produce, cause, compel, produce, accomplish, press, squeeze, force, affect, A-F-F-E-C-T, affect, so that there's an effect, a result. But so it's that positive doing. That's Aleph Shin, and the Vav Tav is the plural. So that letter Lamed prefix can mean belonging to, or regarding, or by doing something. So guard by doing ka'asher. Well, the kaf prefix means like. So Aleph Shin Resh means who, that, or which. But then asher is might call it a parallel word with Yishar, Yod Shin Resh. Aleph Shin Resh, Aleph is the first person prefix, Yod is the third person prefix, I will versus he will. Shin Resh, Yishar, like the first three letters of Israel, straight, right, valid, authentic, confirm, plumb level, square, level, even. So Israel is supposed to be absolutely correct, right? So guard by doing just as Zadi Vav Hey. Well, Zadi Vav is the word command. Like the admiral gives a command and the entire fleet does accordingly. Zadi Vav Vav means man the crew. So if we want to be his people, his kadoshi, his beloved, his betrothed, in his service of Zavot, and as it were to join the military, join the colors as it's called, do what he said. What did he say? Well, what he said, what he commands is Zadi Vav. So if you look at the word spelled Zadi Aleph, it means to get out, to excrete, to publish, to Zadi Kuf, to pour out. This Zadi is this blossoming, this letter with like a flag in the wind, a wing, just it's explosive. It's the picture of the resurrection. Yeshua coming out of the grave, the Zadi coming after the letter Pei. Boof! So Zadi Vav is his Zadi, his anything he expressed, because the Vav would be the suffix of the Zadi, but here you got Zadi Vav Hey, so Hey is the suffix of the Vav suffix of the Zadi. Just saying how you can look at this and picture the letters. Why is that word spelled that way? His command is whatever comes out of whatever he expresses. So the word matzah, mem zadi aleph, like matzah bread, means press or squeeze. So when you force something like a shot, but it also, matzah means find out how to do something. Find out how to do anything. You know, you can go to your computer and Google some sort of, well, you can ask it anything these days, but as you're trying to find out how to do something, well, that's the word mitzvot. Mem zadi vav tav is not only the word matzo, meaning a plural of matzah, but it's translated as commands. Mem zadi vav tav is mitzvot. Mem zadi mitz. Vav tav vot mitzvot. Where's the V sound? What I'm saying is his commands is finding out how to do something. So when you choose life or choose death, that was what was put, Moshe said, I put before you life and death, blessing and cursing. And I urge you to choose life. So that's the first step. Choose life. Yeah, but what do you have to do? Just choose. Choose life. So every person, every nation, everybody has a fundamental personal determination. That's where it starts. I find that I'm alive. Hey, here I am. Okay, you have a choice, life or death, blessing or cursing. Yeah, but what if that comes later? Right here, life or death. Let me think about that. Okay, take as long as you want until you stop breathing. You don't know when that's going to be. Choose life or choose death. Okay, with life comes blessing, with death comes cursing. So there's that. It's not just existence or non-existence. Okay, so if you choose life, now what? Okay, now what? Now there's another step. So the big white fence with the Zion outside the fence and the Tet inside the fence. Zion is this axe. Zion means to be cut off. Zion is like the Sabbath day, but there's different ways to read the Mishkan pattern. But the basic idea is there's a cutting off, a separation, like a moat around a castle, where there's death on the outside of the fence and there's life on the inside of the fence. So if you want to come into the kingdom of Yahweh Zavot, the Elohim of life, make a choice to live. Then you got to ask Jesus in your heart. It doesn't say that. It says choose life. Now, I'm not diminishing that in the consciousness of come into my heart and what does that mean and how do you do that and all the other psychological ramifications, that there's maybe some merit, there's some demerit, but the point is, what's he actually say? He said, okay, choose life. Well, Passover. What's Passover? To pass over is to jump over the threshold, Pesach. Well, to cross over a river, to cross the street, that's also the word Pesach, but it's the same exact meaning as the word Hebrew, to cross from here to there, to no longer be this, now you're that. The word Hebrew means to be pregnant. It also means to be angry. So you could be a little disturbed, but all of a sudden you lose it. Something infuriates you. How do you get the person back? Let them calm down. No, to be angry, to be that word Hebrew in that sense means you've crossed a bridge, you've crossed a threshold, and now you're over there and there is no getting back. It's like, how do you stop being pregnant? Well, you have to have some sort of abortion. You can't just, okay, let's pretend that never happened. It's like, so I'm trying to say what's in these words. So if Pesach is, you're going to kill a lamb, which was one of the Egyptian gods, paint its blood on your doorpost, you're making yourself despicable. There's no coming back from this. And then the firstborn of the Egyptians are all going to die. You're even more despicable. Get out of here, and I never want to see your face again, as Pharaoh said to Moshe. So yeah, Moshe said something like, yeah, if you ever see my face again, you're going to be dead. I mean, this Passover is not a spectator event. Some people have said, hey, yeah, we want to see what Passover is like. How do them Jews do it? Well, you dress up like this, you put a certain hat on, and you have certain crackers. And it's like, no. Now, Sukkot, which is coming up, that seems to be, tabernacles, that seems to be more of a get together for other people if they're interested. But Passover, man, that's a dead or alive. That's an in or out. That's a crossing over sort of event. So the big white fence of crossing into life, or you're outside where's the darkness and death. Passover is like stepping into the big white fence, and it says, it was describing the Mishkan in Exodus 25, right inside the fence, there's this barbecue grill. The altar, the bronze altar of sacrifice. Well, that's like Pesach is the evening of the night of the 14th, and then 15th, boom, right inside is Chag HaMatzot, the festival of unleavened bread. But if matzah means find out how to do, then that means if you choose life, immediately your burden, your responsibility, your obligation is, how's it working here? The Torah, that's what the Torah is. So to see if Het, Tet, and Yod, Mishkan pattern alphabet thing, goes to the big white fence like Pesach, like let there be light, so there's dark separated from light, Yehi Or. Ivdal Elohim bin ha'oru bin ha'chosek. He's separated between the light and between the dark. That's one. And day two is separating water from water, separating the protocols of the kingdom, the Torah instructions of life from the consciousness of death. That Torah instructions of mitzvot is the substance of life. And if he says in his Torah, do this and don't do that, then if we say, yeah, I don't think so, you're speaking against life. If you don't think so, you need to change your thinking. Oh, we don't do it that way where I come from. Yeah, but you've crossed over. Where you came from has nothing to do with anything once you enter this kingdom. The obligation of anyone entering the kingdom, if they choose life, is to say, how do I now live? How do I think? Where's my heart? Who is Yahuwah that I should regard him? What does he insist? What does he demand? What does he zadi vav of me? So you go back here, Deuteronomy 5:29, observe by doing, like authentically confirming straight, valid, the command expressed Yahweh, your Elohim, and then Aleph, Tav, Kaf, Mem. Well, Kaf, Mem suffix means y'all, plural. Aleph, Tav, well, they just say, well, that's like a yoke, a plowshare, with you. Well, if Aleph, Tav is a yoke and a plowshare, as it says in the dictionary, Aleph, Tav is a single word, is not given definition, but used in this context, Aleph, Tav, hey means you. Aleph Tav Yod is translated me. Aleph Tav Kaf Mem is you all, but with y'all. The Aleph Tav with y'all. Guard by doing, like everything he commanded, Yahweh your Elohim, being with. It doesn't say being, but Yahweh, Yod Vave, means to exist. So existing with you, how do you get him to be with you? By guarding to do exactly, I could say asher means exactly, that which straight, valid, confirming, authentic, zadi vav hey, he commanded. So when somebody says, tell you what, we're going to change what he said, we're going to change his name, change his day, change his Moedim festivals, change his covenant, change what people group, change what it means to get his attention, change how you pray, change everything. It ain't asher zava or zoa. So if Deuteronomy 5:29 is pure truth, then the way to make sure he's with us, which is attending, and you know that phrase, may his face shine upon you, panav leka. What a nice thing to pray, the Aaronic benediction. But if you pray the Aaronic benediction, and he says, so you shall put my name upon my Bnei Israel, and I myself shall indeed so accordingly to these statements, bless them. But if you change that and say, may the Lord bless you and keep you and shine his face upon you and give you peace. Who's you? If you ain't guarding his command, if you ain't his people Israel, his Bnei Israel, if you ain't regarding his name or his Zadi Vav Hey, then all that Aaronic benediction stuff can't work. Wasted words. And if you were to get his attention to look at you, how do you do that? Going back to the opening question. It goes on to say, lo tasaro. Lamed Aleph is the word no, non-negatory. Tav, Samik Resh Vav. Well, Samik Resh Vav. You won't find that as such in the dictionary, but you'll find Samik Resh Hey. So again, we're going over and over and over this stuff so that as you look for yourself, say, oh, yeah, we were talking about that a week ago, a month ago. And so Vav is the masculine suffix, Hey is the feminine suffix. So Sarah, that's not the same as Sarah because that's Sheen Resh. Hey is princess, Abraham's wife. But we have this English word, sorry. What does sorry mean? Yeah, oh, sorry. It means to turn around and go back. It means something opposite of what you were doing. So the word sorry means to turn back, to rebel or revolt. Do what he commanded. No way! Hey, that's not turning back, but it's turning back by being offensive. So Samik Resh means rebel, revolt, turn away from whatever you say, sir. To be on his team, to be a part of his crew, to be his people, is to regard his Zadi Vav with, yes, sir. I'd be glad to do so. Thank you for giving me an instruction that I can do, that you can go, good boy, good boy. Samik Resh is the opposite. And then it says, Yod Mem Yod Nun. Well, you look that up, and Mem Yod Nun means to classify or to sort things out by type, by gender, by color, by shape or size, or if this one's smooth and that one's fuzzy, like Esau and Jacob. It's translated, do not turn to the right or the left. See, the word Samik Resh there, they just say turn. It's like, what turn? What do you mean turn? Do not contradict his instruction. And if the word Mem Yod Nun, well, Yemen, Yod Mem Nun or Yod Mem Yod Nun, like Benjamin, son of my right hand, it doesn't just mean right as in right hand or left hand. If it means, well, if you look up Mem Yod Nun Vav Tav in the dictionary, it means heresy or apostasy. So he's saying, do not turn to any other sort or classification, which is different. If you could say, well, we believe this way, but those guys believe that way. We believe in Saturday, they believe in Sunday. We got 7 festivals, they got Christmas, Easter, Halloween, and whatever else they might add. We got Yod He Vav He, they got the Lord. It's like, if you can make a distinctive classification of difference, he said, don't do that. That's what the word right hand is referring to. And then the left hand is spelled Shin Mem Aleph Lamed. Mem Aleph Lamed Yod Vav in the dictionary means by itself. Well, in order to see that, I had to add a couple other letters, suffix letters, because Mem Aleph Lamed doesn't appear by itself in the dictionary. Shin can be a prefix, meaning that which belongs to. Mem can be a prefix, the place of Aleph Lamed. Well, Aleph Lamed is El, translated God. So you could say that which belongs to the place of God by itself. In other words, don't just make up your own stuff and think, this is it. I have a divine revelation. I have a divine burning in my heart that this is true. You may even have an angel visit or some sort of epiphany, but if it contradicts the Zadi Vav of Yahuwah's Torah, don't go for it. It's not allowed. Well, as soon as he gives an instruction, don't turn to the right or left. Right or left of what? Straight path. How do you do that? Don't go along with any sort of other classification or any sort of divine enlightenment that you personally receive, which is different from doing what he said to guard. Yeah, but how do you know what he said to guard? You know, the old covenant was done away with. Oh, the old covenant was done away with. Says who? Guys with fancy hats and robes and standing in pulpits and sitting in the bema seat, and they got all kinds of authority. Some have even had visits of angels and miracles done in their regard. They're saints, you know, those guys. turns away from what Yahweh commanded us to regard by doing, it itself is heresy, apostasy, doesn't belong in Yahuwah's kingdom. So the only way for me to know what did he say, if those guys are changing things, or if I personally might be deceived by some sort of personal divine enlightenment or epiphany, or I've got to know what he said. And the only way to know what he said is to look at his language. So verse 30 says, Bakal, prefix letter bet, in, on, with, among, through, against, in the condition of all, kaf lamed, all, each, any, or every. Haderek, hey, dalet, resh, kaf. But wait a minute, hey can be regarded as a prefix letter meaning the. Kaf can mean you or your. So you got dalet, resh. Well, dalet, resh, dar, door, that's like the word generation, or your turn in the spin, in the queue. Your turn up at bat. You're waiting to get on the freeway until the light lets one car at a time, and all of a sudden you get there. No, now it's your time to go. That's dalet resh. But the word derek, dalet resh kaf, if kaf isn't a suffix, it's just the last of the three letters of a word. It means way, journey, conduct, or manner. So bakal haderek is along the entire path of your life's sojourn. Asher zova. Asher, well, that's like the previous verse. Ka asher zadivav hey. Here it says asher zadivav hey. Along the entire path, in your generation, do the exact same thing that he has been telling everybody else to do. And then it repeats the word, Yahuwah Elohim Atkam. Yahweh, your Elohim, with you. And then Tav Lamed Kaf Vav. Well, Tav is a prefix, Vav is suffix meaning he or they. Tav having to do with kind of like future, past tense is best I can figure out, but it says Lakah. That means to you. Kaf Lamed is all, each, every, any, but Lakah, like halakah, talakah, means walking, going, the journey moving, progressing, flowing, as it were. Yahweh your Elohim will be with you through the entire journey. If we're walking as he commanded. Well, if his face is turned away and we want his face to shine upon us, if his attention is because of disgust of previous generations or even ourselves, is angry, he's turned his countenance, how do we get his smiling face back at us? Walk like he commanded. So that, Lamed Memai Nun. So see, if we walk as he commanded, Tav Het Yod Vav Nun. Well, Het Yod is the word for life. So if you get Zadi Yod Vav Nun, that's the word Zion. Mount Zion, the like the Emerald City of Oz, the New Jerusalem, Zion on the sides. It's like Zion, Zadi Yod Vav Nun. But well, if Zadi Vav is command, if Zadi is the letter that speaks of resurrection, blossoming, flying, flourishing, a flag in the wind. What's this Yod Vav Nun, Eon? Well, here it's Het Yod Vav Nun. So the best I can tell is this Nun is the action, is one engaged in the doing of it. If Zadi Vav is his command, Zadi Yod Vav Nun is the ones that are doing as he commanded. So Zion isn't just the name of this place or the name of his majesty. It's all his Zavot, his angel armies, his legions, us who are doing, like we talked about in Isaiah 13, his proudly exulting ones who are exuberant over his grandeur. Not for their own regard. It's all about seeing his spectacular countenance. That's Zion. And then what's Chion? What does it mean to live? Well, I woke up this morning, and after I had my cup of coffee, it's like, I gotta wake up a little bit, and it's like, well, that's if you have breath, if your blood's flowing. We talked about that. The Adam, Aleph, Dalet is vapor, Dalet Mem is blood, Adam, Adamah is earth. So you take a clay structure and you put breath and blood flowing, and there's Adam. Where's life? It has life, but this life is almost like just an appetizer, a precursor to Chaim, just eternal life, but really living. And there's something about, do what he said, Lamed Mem Ayin Nun, so that. Well, if Lamed Mem Ayin Nun simply means so that, it's like, no, wait a minute. We looked at, like Isaiah 58, the word fast, humble yourself on the Shabbat. Did that video years ago about, is that the day of Yom Kippur, or is that every Sabbath day? What are you supposed to do? Well, fast, humble yourself, oppress yourself, impoverished, don't eat and don't drink. It's like, the word is spelled Ayin Nun Hey. Well, here it's Lamed Mem Ayin Nun, and though there's no Hey suffix, the root of it is Ayin Nun. You look at that, means answer. It means to sing. It means if somebody is singing the lead and then you have a choir in response, well, that's the answering, responding. If you address a letter and get a response, a return mail, that's Ayin Nun Hey. But it also means to make it your burden. I'm going to pull this burden on my own self, to regard, to make it my business. So Lamed Mem Ayin Nun. So Lamed prefix, he will be with you, Lamed accordingly, making it, remember, Ani Ladodi, Bedodi Li. I am belonging to my beloved is mine, possessive. So Lamed can mean belonging to, it's possessive of, and if it's just translated so that, it's the possession, or so that, it's the thing that then is attached. Mem, the place of Ayin Nun, something becomes the burden, something becomes the answer. Oh, if we do what? We walk on the derrick by doing as he commanded, guarding to do, making sure we do. Paying attention, I'm going to make sure I do this time. So that the answer, the response, the return to our behavior is life. Chion and Tov. Lakam, for you, your possession, and hey, Aleph Resh Kaf, Tav Mem. Well, Aleph Resh Kaf, Arek, similar sound to Ayin Resh Kaf, but this means to prolong and lengthen, to drag something out. Talking a lot, or doing something a lot, living a lot. Yod Mem, well, Mem Yod Mem is water, and just so you know, Yod Vav Mem is the word for day, and when you pluralize day, it's not Yod Vav Mem, Yod Mem, it's they drop the Vav and it's just Im, Yod Mem. So what will happen is the real essence of life and goodness, that goodness can mean welfare and full capacity as designed, functioning properly, and length of days, be'aretz, on the earth, asher, that, and the last word of Deuteronomy 5:30, tav yod shin resh vav nun. Well, there's that vav nun suffix like eon, only there's no yod there, but yod resh shin. So you look up yod resh shin like Jerusalem, yod resh shin or yod resh vav shin, lamed mem, and it means to inherit, to take as a possession. But Resh Shin Tav as a word, the last three letters of the Aleph-Bet in their sequence order, means to be licensed, to be authorized. Aleph Resh Shin Tav is the word for betrothed. Resh Shin Tav Reshit is also the word for a net, trap, or snare. If we walk in his ways, it has this result of long life and goodness, and we are authorized, permitted, licensed, gathered as the betrothed. Well, why would he take all that stuff that he said to do that gets us, yields us this great blessing, and nail it to the cross and say, don't ever do it again? Don't ever do it again? You don't have to do that. Well, that's a different doctrine. If it's a different doctrine, it's a variation to the right or the left. Not exactly what he said. So my burden now is to, upon looking at these words and trying to figure out what they mean, I have to look back at everything else I've been taught and what I believe and say, there's something fishy. There's something going on. It doesn't line up. Why? Why would he do that to us? Why would he say, do this, don't turn to the right or left, and then give angel visits and epiphanies and divine encounters of enlightenment, baiting us to contradict what he just said? Now, if it was a enchanting, beautiful, colored serpent singing a melodious voice, then we'd know it was a trick. By golly, Adam and Hua should have known never to eat that fruit if it was a beautiful serpent talking to them. But we just have beautiful angels or beautiful pastors and teachers and beautiful words speaking to us, telling us to throw away what he said. But according to what he said, if we throw away what he said, he can't hear our voice, and we have no life, and goodness won't follow us. In fact, we'll get the curse of blessing, the curse of death and darkness and ignorance and illiteracy and everything that goes with chosek, because he divides between the or and the chosek. Now, if that's true, you look at Genesis 47:9, and we're getting to Psalm 33. We'll do that, actually, part 2. But anyway, you go look at Genesis 47:9, and Yaakov, Jacob here, has just been retrieved by Joseph, Zaphnath Paneach, the vizier of Egypt, and he brings him to the land of Egypt to live. And the Pharaoh meets him and says, hey, nice to meet you, sir. I've got a mighty fine son here. And how old are you anyway? And Jacob says these words, the days, I'll just read it in English, the days of the years of my sojourns have been 130 years. Few and bad have been the days of the years of my life, and they have not reached the lifespans of my forefathers in the days of their sojourns. Yaakov is one of our patriarchs, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, few and bad. Wait a minute, was he not walking in Yahweh's way? Didn't Yahweh say, Esau, Jacob's twin brother, Esau I hate, but Jacob I love? And if you can be one of the three patriarchs with Yahuwah's love lavished on you, how in the heck can he say my years, the days of my years have been few and bad? The word few is mem, ayin, tet. Meut. Well, that's where you get the word like iota, which is like a dot above an I or the letter J. Not one iota. The word iota is a Greek word, and it's a small little speck like the dot on the I. That's why that's the one letter with a dot above it, just so you know. Mem, ayin, tet is like the dot of the I, just minuscule. And then the word bad is resh, ayin, yod, mem. Well, resh, ayin, well, that's kind of like the root of tarua. So resh, ayin by itself isn't the word bad. It's actually friend. friends. It means to think, it means to shout, it means to be in a company with, like friends, companions, associates, but it's also evil, harm, and calamity. So, 5 minutes. Did he really say few and bad? Well, that's what he said. But then you could say, if anybody should be our patriarch, father figure, ancestor to give us a model of how we should be, shouldn't it have been Jacob? Shouldn't we listen to Yaakov saying Hodu la Yawaki Tov? Didn't Yaakov have some kind of divine privilege, being one of the great patriarchs? I mean, don't you think he would have gotten a few extra, something a little better than us? That's a really bad confession. What did Yahuwah mean when he say Esau I hated and Jacob I loved? Well, the word hate is Aleph Yod Bet. In the dictionary, it means hostile, to hate, enmity, grudge, malice. And your enemies, one of the words for enemies is actually Aleph Yod Bet. Aleph Yod Bet Yod, my enemy. Very interesting thing. I was looking at something else, and then I with the noon prefix, noon, Aleph Yod Bet Yod, naibi, but the bet can sound like a V, and so naive, and it says, well, this Hebrew word, noon, Aleph Yod Bet Yod, comes from a Latin root. See, it's the etymological dictionary by Klein. It means born, innate, natural, not artificial. So as we were talking at other times, Mark was saying, hey, it doesn't mean that he hated Esau. It means he preferred Jacob. And it's like, listen, the word means hate. Wait a minute. If Nun Aleph Vav Tav means suitable, fit, or proper, na'ot, if Nun Aleph Yod Bet Yod means natural, unaffected, left as is, Yahuwah's attention to Yaakov that I love, Aleph Hey Bet. Hey Bet is the word to give. So in other words, if he left Esau alone because Esau didn't want his involvement, it's translated that he hated him. He couldn't engage him. He was left natural. No artificial, no supplementation. But Yaakov, Yahweh said, I love. It's to give. It's to mess with his, engaging his life. Big difference, love versus hate. Esau, I couldn't do anything with. I left him alone. But because Yaakov turned his heart to me, wanting, then to the degree that Yaakov would listen to my voice and walk in my ways, I could supplement his life with what I give. And for Yaakov to say, few and bad, it's like, Yaakov, what sort of mirror were you holding up? Yikes. We want his involvement. What sort of mirror are we? And then so you get the book of 1 John, you can't say you love Elohim and you don't love your fellow humans, your neighbors. The way you treat your associates is the way you're loving him. Okay, we're going to have to take a break, but the point about this, who is our Elohim, and how do we get his attention? How do we get him to regard us with favor? What bait do we put on the hook for fishing for his face?